Well, we just wanted to say that we did a national report around with 32 different states in the country, and being a part of that initiative was such a beautiful thing to really look at the true cause of incarceration. And as I was in California and putting this initiative together, I met some extraordinary people. And I'm gonna turn this over to Sheila, and she's gonna tell you, how we came up with this report.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming out tonight. This was an amazing project. Someone from the Ella Baker Center in Oakland came here a few years ago to talk to us about some work they wanted to do to study the impact and the cost of incarceration on families. And at the time, I had an incarcerated son, so I was very interested in working on this. For anyone who doesn't know who Ella Baker was, and in a lot of our hearts is, really, look it up and, study the hard beliefs and the fight of this woman. I want to just hit on this real briefly. The Ella Baker Center for Human Rights advances racial and economic justice to ensure dignity and opportunity for low-income people and people of color. We are building a people-powered movement to end mass incarceration, criminalization, and state violence by moving away from prisons and punishment toward family-driven solutions that improve public health, safety, and prosperity for all communities. Boom. What better way than just to say, we need to uplift ourselves. We are trying to build a movement of directly affected people, formerly incarcerated, and the people and their families coming together to talk about our struggles, but not only talk about them, because, they say everybody has a dream. We got a vision, because when you're dreaming, you're sleeping. And we have no time to sleep when we're fighting this. There ain't no sleeping in the revolution. You will not be sleeping. So if you're tired or got any of that going on, we need to stop it right now. So that's why we're here, to give some energy. We have a few things, there's a lot of things. We have this book that we don't have enough to give everybody, so that's just a heads up. So if you want to see the book, you're going to have to come to meetings on Monday night. You will be able to see the book. But throughout this, it just talks about hardcore things that we know. It talks to 67% of people getting out of prison wanting to either go to school or go back to school. But because of certain states and federal laws, only 17% of folks on the national average are allowed to go back to school. 17% out of 67. And we all know everyone deserves a right for education, housing, and fairness. At least that's what they tell us. That's what they tell us. I was talking to Joe Buck tonight about some of the things that we learned around phone rates. Simple phone calls for keeping in touch with your family members. And we all know in Rhode Island they're high and ridiculous. But believe it or not, we're some of the cheaper phone rates in this country because of work that we did at DARE. Work that we did with Behind the Walls Committee, fighting and then working with. And notice I said fighting and then working with, because we tried to work with the system and they didn't want to hear it, so we had to fight and then work with, because they knew we weren't going anywhere, especially when it comes to our children and our loved ones. I know personally, I felt like every single day my son was locked up, there was a piece of me that was locked up too. And no person, no mother, no woman should have to feel like that. In no part of this country or any of our lives should prison be a normalcy. Especially behind that big word they're having, rehabilitation. Locking somebody up and attempting to throw them away is not rehabilitation. And that's why we do what we do. That's why we join together with these groups around the country, from California, Arizona, Ohio, Michigan, Louisiana. If y'all think stuff's going bad up here, you should see Louisiana. Oh my God. Louisiana, Virginia, New York, all around the country coming together, listening to people's stories. And when I tell you, I got on the phone some days, and I was on these calls and crying because of things that I knew that was going on with one of my kids. And people who didn't even know me, had never seen me before. It's like they were reaching through the phone and holding me at times. And that's a lot of times what gave me the energy to fight this fight and to go on with this, because I know we got to do it. And we got to do it. And we can't rely on them, and it has to be us. It has to be directly affected people leading this movement. We need our allies, yes we do, but we need our voices fighting this fight. We need it not only because of the energy that we possess, but our families on the inside need to know that we have not given up on them. They need to know there are people that are there for them. So I strongly urge you to come to DARE on Monday nights. Be a part of this movement. Read this study. Listen to these words and understand why it took us 2 years. We had women coming out. We had grandmothers coming out telling the stories of raising children because their children are no longer here. We interviewed formerly incarcerated people in this room or all around this building, people telling their stories of being denied medication, being denied mental health services, being denied phone calls, being in lockup for whatever the reason may be. Listening to the stories, gathering the information, and bringing it together nationally. So many of our stories that are so very much the same, yet so very, very, very different. But they're all heartfelt and they're all real. So once again, what do we got to do? We got to come together. It took us 3 years to pass Ban the Bucks, and a lot of you were in this room when I stood right here with this lovely microphone, and I said, 3 times was a charm. 3 times was a charm, and we passed Ban the Bucks, giving people the opportunity for employment. So thanks everybody for coming out. John's going to talk a minute now. One last thing I got to say. If I didn't say anything else tonight, and I knew I would, I don't want a moment of silence. I want a moment to raise this roof in honor of Millie. Yeah. Millie! Millie! Please, no silence. Millie, one of our soldiers who's looking down, who was a part of this study, who went out to bus stops, Kennedy Plaza, treatment centers all over, looking to bring people in to be a part of this. Give it up, please, one more time for Millie.
Oh, yes, thank you for remembering. Yes, sir.
Never forgot. Millie will not be forgotten. And one more thing, anybody who didn't drop anything in Lisa's basket tonight, you know Sheila was going to tell you that food ain't free. I put my money in because I would have been eating at Burger King. Drop your money in. We need to keep this moving. We keep this moving, build with our voices, our hearts, our fight, and our dollars.
Oh, man, thank you, Sheila. Whew. Damn, boy, there's a lot of energy in this room tonight. I'm feeling it, man. You know, I want to read something that's from the New York Times today. That the survey that we did where we talked about the Ellen Baker Center, and I'm just going to read a few words. A survey of families that have a member in jail or prison has found that nearly 2/3 struggle to meet their basic needs, including 50% that are unable to afford significant food and adequate housing. The report found the costs associated with incarceration, like traveling from prison to visit, had pushed more than 1/3 of the families into debt. Damn. The research was conducted by the Ellen Baker Center for Human Rights in Oakland, California, Forward Together, and more than a community and civil rights organization that works with incarcerated people. The focus of this economic hardship endured by families after arrest it is often overlooked elements of national criminal justice system, where 2.4 million people are in prisons all over the country. Many of them fathers, mothers, who were family primary income earners according to the report. After an inmate release, a criminal conviction often means a family loss, its ability to live in a government subsidized housing. A former inmate are barred from competing for various federal student grants and loans and have difficult finding even minimum jobs. 26% or more than 700 formerly inmates surveyed, because we did a lot of surveys all over the country, and Providence was one of them, and I'll get the chance to show you what we did. The study remains unemployed 5 years after their release, and the vast majority of others have found only part-time or temporary jobs, the report said. The finding emphasized the link between imprisonment and poverty. The National Campaign for the Ellen Baker Center, a nonprofit group that focuses on racial and economic justice. I just want to say that I had the opportunity to go to California and work on these surveys and bring this thing to the national level. Right now, all the work we do they're gonna allocate that in Washington, D.C. They're gonna go to the Congress out there and tell them the report that they found, that the prison system is a business. It is on Wall Street. It's not about rehabilitation. It's about a slavery camp that keep us in debt even when we come out of prison. So how is that going to help our families and people that we love, that they want to make a fresh start and they're not able to? And me being a formerly incarcerated person, it was tough on me. And I just want to say that I want to echo what Sheila just said. We need to keep on fighting. We need to take the prison system down brick by brick, and we need to keep marching on and do what we do. If you like what we do here, if you want to become a member and help us grow this nation and this revolution as we move forward to fight discrimination around housing, I got sign-in sheets that those that want to become a member tonight. It's $30 for the year. And if you don't have $30, if you have $5, $10, that gets you in and help us try to do what we do. Thank you very much. I want to say, if no one said that they love you today, I love each and every one of you. Thank you.
Let me say this real quickly, in case anybody in the room is wondering, or in case you got friends that's wondering. Behind the walls is a prison abolition committee. Okay, we are not asking for more comfortable shackles. Okay? We are abolitionists. We're actually trying to abolish the prison system. However, sometimes that means that we have to stand our ground and make sure that the system isn't encroaching anymore until we get ourselves organized, and then we can take another step. Okay, so I don't want anybody to leave this room tonight, because you know how stuff be going around, and they say, oh, they're just reformists, you know, they work with the system, and no. Okay, so I don't want anybody to leave here thinking that that's what this report is about. Okay. We're going to now ask Rachel Bishop to come up. Rachel Bishop is one of our chief researchers on this report. She was doing the research. And so she got all the numbers and figures and the details. And so Rachel, warm round of applause for Rachel Bishop.
Hey everyone. So John and the committee invited me to talk to y'all about what the campaign's going to be all about, what our policy looks like. And I can't say no to John when he asked me to do something, so that's what I'll do tonight. And first off, I just want to give one more round of applause to John Prince, because he is so the heart and soul of Behind the Walls. Y'all know. Y'all already know. So I don't have to tell folks in this room the way the prison system is hurting people, and we didn't need to see this report to know the way it's hurting folks. The way that people come out of it and they don't have access to jobs, they don't have access to housing, they got debts like nuts from court fines. We see it there. And there at Behind the Walls, we worked on the jobs campaign. We got Ban the Box passed. We worked on that, and we're done with that. We did that. And we're we got some folks in the room, we said, what's the next thing? What do we need to move our energies towards? And people kept saying, even if I got a job, if I don't have a place to live, what am I supposed to do? How am I going to re-enter? How am I going to reintegrate into my community if I don't have anywhere to go? So we all know that in Rhode Island, there is a huge lack of affordable housing. People in this room, people come out, there aren't enough shelters. Open Doors doesn't have room for everyone. There's not enough transitional housing. If folks want to move back in with their families that live in public housing or Section 8, they can't do it. They can't do it because they are discriminated against. Doesn't matter if they committed a crime 10 years ago, doesn't matter. No access. So we were talking to people, and we decided that's going to be our focus. We want to fight for fair access to public housing for people who have criminal records. So that's what we're going to do. Because we know when folks come out, they're choosing oftentimes between homelessness or trying to move back in with their families and risking their families getting evicted. That's not a choice. What kind of choice is that? People who have paid their time deserve not to be punished again once they come out by not living with their families. So you're going to hear from some of those folks later. Some of those folks are going to come up and share their stories. And if you haven't been on the agenda, we're going to welcome you up to share with us and tell us what's really going on. And before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about what the public housing policies look like right now and how we want to change them. So right now, we are focusing on the Providence Public Housing Authority. And if you want to apply to housing at the Providence Public Housing Authority and you have a criminal record, they're going to look at your record and they're going to go back and look 10 years into your record. That's on the books. But we know that they go back 10, 15, 20, sometimes 30 years looking at people's records. And they don't care what kind of crime it is. They look at misdemeanors, they look at felonies. Sometimes they even look at arrests that didn't result in convictions. We all know enough about the way that racism works and police profiling works to know that if we are thinking about arrests when we decide who gets the right to housing, we got a whole lot of problems we need to fix. So what do? They look back 10 years, these long look back periods. They don't care what kind of crime it was. They're just going to deny anyone when they look at that. Most people are just denied as soon as they apply and they have got a record of anything. And besides that, if someone wants to appeal, first of all, we got to talk about, do they know they can? Can they get that legal representation? We know how that goes. And even if they do, fewer than 7% of those appeals are overturned. That's the only time someone's full story is even heard. That's the first time. Fewer than 7%. Wow. So what's the use of appealing? Exactly. What's the use of appealing? And that's the first and only time someone actually gets their whole story heard. That someone gets to say, you know, I committed this crime 7 years ago. I've done a couple things since then. Why don't we talk about that? Why don't we talk about why I'm still a safe and responsible tenant to have it housing? If I applied to a job, a writing gig, and someone said, oh, that's great, how about a writing sample from 20 years ago? I was a different person then. I've done some things. I'm a little taller. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. We've talked to folks in Behind the Walls who they can't get into housing with their kids. They can't live with their kids because of something they did 26, 28, 30 years ago. It's ridiculous. So we're about changing that at Behind the Walls. And we've had folks in this room. We got all sorts of experts on housing from Rhode Island Housing, people from the Housing Resource Commission, from Rhode Island Legal Services, and people who are the real experts, people who've walked it, who know what happens when they come out, people who live in public housing and they know what it's like to face eviction. We've had those people in the room and saying, what do you want? What should this look like? What would it look like to have fair access to housing for people with records? And so I want to tell you all what that's going to look like. Yeah, you listen. So you've got, hopefully folks have got a handout that looks something like this. And if you don't, maybe John can go around. This is our brief outline. You can take a look at it later. So the first thing that we're saying is we need some shorter look-back periods. None of this 10 years business. That's crazy. That's like Chicago only has 5. The housing authorities get to make this stuff up. HUD doesn't have that restriction. No one on the federal level is telling them to do that. So we're saying you're not going to look any farther than 3 years back into someone's record. So what else? When you're looking back 3 years, you're not just going to say anything like, oh, look, someone got arrested, so I guess they're not going to be suitable to live with their wife. No, that's not how it's going to go. What we're going to say is you cannot consider misdemeanors and you cannot consider arrest records when someone is applying to housing. It's off the table. And the third piece of this is that they do that now. That's a fight for another day and someone else. Absolutely, yeah. So the third piece of this, besides those shorter look-back periods and not considering any misdemeanors and any arrest records, is for those felonies that they do consider. And we've got a list. We're saying there's only 17 that we're letting you think about. 17 felonies, that's it, that we're letting you think about. And if someone has a record of that felony within the last 3 years, what they can do is they have to hear their story. They have to have them, invite them in and give the person a chance to talk to a panel to say, here's what I've done, here are my circumstances, this is what happened to me, and here's why I should have my right to housing given to me and honored. So that is what's going to happen. So we're talking about what that panel is going to look like, but what we know is that we need people who live in public housing who either have families who are incarcerated or who themselves have been incarcerated and have somehow made it into housing. We want those people on the panel because we know that panel is going to use their discretion, and we want to make sure they're using it in a way that's fair and just to people with records. So that's what we're going to ask for. So those are our major points, and what I want to say to folks is that we need people in the room to make this happen. We've got some amazing support. Councilwoman Mary Kay Harris, who is on the PHA board, is a fierce fighter for this, and we know she's got our back all the way. We'll give her a round of applause for Mary Kay. She's gonna... But we need folks in the room. We meet Mondays right here, 6 to 8, and we need you. We need your story, and we need your ideas for what this is gonna look like, because this is gonna be a long road, and we know they're gonna fight. And the best part is if we fight this, if we get more fair applications, what we're going to be able to do is change their standards for how folks are getting evicted. Because right now in the Housing Authority, as y'all know, if someone has a family member or a guest who commits a crime in their housing or off the premises, that person can get evicted, and they don't even have to wait for the conviction. What kind of system is that? What kind of system is that? We've called the housing resident selection manager, and they tell us, oh yeah, we've got special police officers, and they send us the reports of the arrests so we can start the evictions quicker. That's what's happening. That's what's happening, and we need the folks in this room. This is a powerful showing. Imagine if we could pack PHA's office with this many people. That would make some change.